This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. I have been in a relationship with Hailey for 5 years. To save H Corporation, I became her assistant, handling all company affairs. But her friends mock me, saying I'm freeloading, and she never explains. She canceled our engagement party to throw a welcome party for her old flame. That night, I stood outside the private room. I heard him ask, "Aren't you worried Rockey will be upset about you calling off the engagement?" She laughed and said, "Don't worry. He's easy to pacify. He's devoted." At that moment, I made up my mind to leave. On the day I left the country, she showed up at the airport in a sports car, wearing a wedding dress, ready to propose. But this time, I didn't wait for her. At the engagement rehearsal, I waited for Hailey, but she didn't show. Her phone was unreachable. Peter joked, "The heiress must have changed her mind." Maybe. You can still joke? If you ask me, forget about the wedding and stop clinging to her. He's not wrong. I have indeed been Hailey's loyal follower. She's strong-willed, and when she's unhappy, she disregards my dignity. But I know she comes from a wealthy family, cherished and naturally a bit spoiled. As a man, I should be more understanding. Besides, I'm an orphan, sponsored by her family. After graduating college, I became her assistant. She thought I wanted the job, but really, I wanted to be near her. She doesn't know that the moment I saw her in the orphanage, I was captivated. She looked like a princess, and back then, I couldn't even lift my head to look at her. But she smiled, handed me a hyacinth, and said, "I'm Hailey, just like this flower." In that moment, she became my first love and my only one. Later, I pressed each petal from that flower into a book, like I carefully treasured my love for her in my heart. Even knowing she was a trophy beauty, her company was in debt, and I still turned down offers from major companies to stay by her side. I willingly became her hidden boyfriend and assistant for 5 years, helping her secure her position. Her friends don't know her success is because of me. They think I'm incapable, just a freeloader. I know she cares about appearances, so I never corrected them. For all these years, I loved her, accustomed to admiring her, willing to endure and sacrifice for her in silence. But I'm human, and I feel disappointed too. When one-sided dedication becomes too much, it's exhausting, and the idea of giving up on this relationship started to grow. So I contacted the hotel manager and canceled the engagement party. If I'm not mistaken, Hailey is currently on a flight to Los Angeles. Last night, her old flame Tony called her in the early hours. It's hard to imagine. Hailey, who's usually cranky when woken up, spoke so gently, asking him what was wrong. I don't know what he said on the other end, but I heard Hailey's voice filled with concern and worry coming from the bathroom. Before she came out, she accidentally knocked over my glass on the sink. By the time I woke up, she was gone, leaving behind only broken shards on the floor. I went to the hotel for the engagement rehearsal as usual, but I lost the gamble. That man, the one her friends often praise, who was more talented, romantic, and handsome. The one she admired in college, but never confessed to before he went abroad. He's the one I couldn't beat, even after 5 years. Honestly, I'm tired. The next day, when I arrived at the company, I felt everyone's curious glances. As I passed by the break room at noon, I overheard the employees gossiping about me. So, does Assistant Rockey's attempt to rise to power count as a failure? I think when backgrounds don't match, even if they marry, they'd eventually separate. But I think Assistant Rockey is quite handsome, and he's a gentleman. What's the point? If he really had talent, would he still be an assistant after 5 years? Calling him an assistant sounds nice, but he's really just a gopher, holding on to this job by being Hailey's loyal follower, right? Our boss Hailey is a star, making H Corporation bigger and stronger. In another 2 years, it might go public. How many people can achieve that? If she really fancied this Phoenix man, it'd be a miracle she finally came to her senses. For 5 years, these rumors have circulated in the company. I don't believe Hailey doesn't know. She simply doesn't care enough about me to mind my feelings. That night, I worked overtime until midnight. To my surprise, Hailey came back. I thought she'd apologize. After all, standing me up at our engagement party is hard to justify. But unexpectedly, she asked, "Why did you cancel the engagement party?" "I told your colleague to tell you I had urgent business abroad and the party was postponed." "Did you misunderstand the word postpone?" "Oh, now I remember. Yesterday afternoon, I did get a call from her personal assistant, but I didn't want to postpone, especially not for that man. What if he calls her again at the next engagement party?" I held back the urge to question her. I didn't want to fight. The work piled up from the engagement preparations had had been exhausting. I chose a more dignified way to put it. Hailey, I think we both need to cool down. Marriage isn't a game. Let's finalize an engagement date after we're both sure. She hasn't thought it through. She stood me up for our engagement. What about the wedding? I'm not so weak as to let my dignity be trampled on. What do you mean? Hailey's cold eyes looked at me, her arms crossed defensively. Do you know my father's health is worsening? He's pushing for this. Do you know what he scolded me about today? Since you canceled it, you should handle the aftermath. Don't leave me to clean up your mess. Her tone was harsh, and I couldn't hold back my question. Clean up my mess? Aren't you the one who can't let go of Tony? You ditched our engagement for him. Did you consider your father's feelings then? She scoffed. I went abroad to see him because of something important. We're completely innocent. We're not as filthy as you imagine. I don't stoop to two-timing. How important? Even if it's more important than our engagement, why couldn't you tell me beforehand? Couldn't we discuss it? Even afterward, I wasn't worthy of an explanation, just of her questioning me, right? How could I tell you beforehand? It was an emergency. Didn't I have Xiao Su inform you? Why are you being unreasonable? Do you ever think about anything other than romance? Are you obsessed? I wanted to laugh. Does she not know that besides her, I spend my days figuring out how to help her take control of H Corporation, how to revive it? Since her father sponsored my education and medical bills, I've been sold to H Corporation. Hailey, you know very well whether I'm obsessed. Then could you tone down your possessiveness and stop being so paranoid? It's very annoying, truly very annoying. Her words felt like a knife to my heart. She abandoned our engagement for another man, and I'm the one being paranoid? I'm the annoying one? In that moment, I felt a deep wound in my heart. I didn't know what to say. My mind went blank. Whatever, I muttered weakly. She knocked the vase off the table, stood up, and went upstairs, leaving me with only one sentence. You sleep in the guest room. I don't want to see you. I sat alone on the living room sofa for a long time, not going upstairs to console Hailey. Every time we argued, I was always the first to apologize, finding every possible way to make her happy, because I was the man, and because I loved her more. I used to believe that I would love her for a long, long time, but now I understand. Love can be worn down little by little. In every moment, it's left unreciprocated. Sadness overwhelmed me like a tidal wave. I cleaned up the broken pieces on the floor, and as I passed her room, I overheard her playing games with her Mr. Perfect. Tony, you're amazing. Another kill. Tony, hurry, save me. Tony, feeling better? Want to play another round? Turns out, she does know how to console someone, just not me. At that moment, I felt dizzy. The floor seemed to twist and contort, turning into a black hole, swallowing me up. Why does Hailey hurt me over and over again, as if nothing ever happened? Will she always treat me like this unless I keep backing down? What did I do wrong? I really can't understand. And so, for the first time, Hailey and I entered a cold war. At the office, she wouldn't talk to me directly, passing messages through others. The documents requiring her signature were also handed over by someone else. Back home, we stopped speaking to each other, and at night, we still slept in separate rooms. I used to dread the thought of such an oppressive atmosphere, wondering how unbearable it would feel. But now that it's actually happening, it doesn't seem to matter much. With disappointment piling up, I find I have no more hope. I don't expect her to realize that I can be hurt too. I don't expect her to notice the repressed pain and compromises I've made for love. When she stood me up at the engagement party, my first feeling wasn't hurt. It was numbness. That day, she finished work early, but there was an urgent project at the company, so I worked overtime until past midnight. I was still working when she called me. Same place. Come pick me up. She hung up without giving me a chance to refuse. Hailey has her own personal assistant and driver. There's no need for me to pick her up, and it's one of her usual clubs, perfectly safe. Besides, we were in a cold war, and my gut told me nothing good would come of it, but I hesitated for a moment and still went. I was worried she'd drink too much and mess around with her crowd of fair-weather friends. After all, as her assistant, I have a duty to make sure she stays safe. When I arrived at the private room, the door wasn't completely closed. Voices drifted out. Hailey, calling off the engagement all of a sudden. Won't Rockey be mad? Don't worry, lapdogs are always easy to soothe. Exactly. I've always thought of him as the family's pet dog. Hailey didn't deny it, she just let it slide. At that moment, my heart, still clinging to love for her, felt as if it had lost its final piece. It was completely dead. Hailey, actually, this was my fault. If I hadn't called you, you wouldn't have worried and flown to L.A. to find me. Don't say that. I was happy you called me. Their friends cheered them on, voices filled with teasing. What was this call about anyway? Tell us. Why do you only call Hailey? Aren't we friends too? Tony, you've been gone for 7 years. Did you come back this time because you heard Hailey was engaged and wanted to steal her away? Come on, fess up. You must be up to no good with our Hailey. Hailey intervened. Enough teasing Tony, or I'll get mad. All right. With Hailey guarding him, we wouldn't dare mess with Tony. I found it laughable. That's all it takes for her to get angry? When they were mocking me as a freeloader, why didn't she get mad? The first time I met her friends and they ridiculed me for wearing knockoffs, why didn't she get mad? She simply said her friends were blunt and didn't mean any harm. But she knew I wasn't trying to show off. I just didn't know any better at the time. Why didn't she give me a chance to explain? My carefully maintained dignity was mocked by her friends, reduced to nothing. But when I saw the shirts and ties she gave me afterward, I would forget the pain, only to fall deeper in love. Not because the gifts were expensive, but because I felt she was protecting my pride. This is how it went. Each time her friends trampled my self-respect, she would pick it up, patch it up, and hand it back to me, and I'd be endlessly grateful. In this relationship, I got used to putting her on a pedestal, always considering her feelings first. So no matter who was right or wrong, I was always the one apologizing after an argument. No wonder they say I'm like a dog. It's true, I've been like a dog without dignity. Today, she probably called me here to make me recognize my place through her friend's mockery, to remind me that I don't deserve to be in a cold war with her and that I should apologize meekly. But she was wrong. When I gave in before, it was because I cared about her. And now, I just don't. Just as I was about to turn and leave, someone came toward me. One of Hailey's friends, Alice. Rockey, why didn't you come inside when you got here? Were you eavesdropping? Her voice was loud, and the joyful noise in the room quieted down. Before, I would have felt embarrassed, humiliated. Now, I simply said calmly, you all gossip about others behind their backs every day. What's worth eavesdropping on? Sorry, I'm not interested, which is why I didn't go in. We don't have anything to talk about, so I'd rather not ruin the mood. Alice seemed surprised by my response. Just as I was about to leave, Hailey called out from inside. Rockey, come in. I didn't move. Alice gave me a smug look, brushed past me, and went in. Don't make me say it twice. It wasn't because I wanted to keep following her around that I didn't leave. I just didn't want to fall out with her in front of everyone. Where there is no longer love, there is still gratitude. If it weren't for her family's support back then, I, a sick orphan with a congenital heart disease, might not be alive today. I turned around and walked in, and there I saw Hailey's Mr. Perfect, Tony. I didn't expect him to look that good. Fair-skinned, fine features, silver hair with a remarkable sheen. He looked even better than a celebrity, although he did appear somewhat frail. No wonder Hailey admired him throughout college, but never dared confess. Hey, snap out of it. We know Tony looks amazing, but don't stare like that. Tony gave me a slight smile. Don't listen to them. I'm no star, just a humble artist. I knew. The star map he'd given Hailey hung in her study. You must be Rockey. I'm Tony. Nice to meet you. If it weren't for the challenge in his gaze, I might have thought it was a friendly smile. I replied indifferently, Hailey said coldly to me, since you're here, sit down. We're not done with Tony's welcome party, so wait a bit. With Tony on her left and someone else on her right, there was no place for me, so I took a seat in the corner. Everyone acted as if I were invisible. In the past, I'd have felt uneasy, afraid her friends would look down on me, making her lose face. Because I didn't want Hailey to be unhappy, even if I didn't like her friends, I would actively try to get along with them. But sometimes, caring too much clouds judgment. It took me a while to realize that for these idle rich kids, the more you try to be friendly, the more they look down on you. To them, my friendliness was just a means to latch onto them. But now, I enjoyed the peace and, undisturbed, took out my phone to handle work matters. They were playing a game where they passed a piece of paper using only their mouths. Their laughter grew loud, and I looked up in distaste. Just in time to see Tony passing the paper to Hailey, it slipped, and the two ended up kissing unexpectedly. Tony immediately pulled back. Hailey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's fine. Hailey forced a smile, looking a bit awkward. It's just a game. I wasn't sure who she was talking to. From across the crowd, I watched her nervous expression and chuckled self-deprecatingly. Ah, you two lost. Come on, draw a dare. Take the punishment. Look deeply into each other's eyes and sing a love song. Come on, come on. Ah, they're so cute together. In the past, I might have felt hurt, but right now, I only felt disgusted, so much that I nearly gagged. Hailey looked at Tony with infatuation, her ears red. That look of being in love, I hadn't seen it in a long time. Over the past 2 years, as the company grew, her patience with me dwindled. I remember our first year at the company, working overtime together on New Year's Eve. I asked her to go home and rest, but she insisted insisted on staying with me. At midnight, the office lights went out. Standing on the 30th floor balcony with sparklers in her hands, she said, "Happy New Year, Rocky. May every year be incomplete without me." Even her confession was domineering. Snow started falling. She blushed and asked me, "Rocky, will you stay with me forever?" "Yes," I replied. When she ran to me, falling into my arms, I felt like I had the entire world. I'd seen how much she loved me, so I could feel her disdain now. So many times, I didn't know the reason. At that moment, the reason was crystal clear. When the music stopped, Tony took the microphone, looking in my direction. "Rocky, don't get the wrong idea. We were just playing the game." I swallowed my retort. "Go ahead, do as you like. Play however you want." Hailey sneered. "Rocky, why are you being sarcastic?" I didn't understand. I'd already been so understanding. Why was she still looking for trouble? But this time, I didn't hold back. "If you think I'm an eyesore, I can leave and give you all space." I got up. Hailey's face darkened, and she threw the microphone to the ground. "If you feel so left out, then come sit here. Tony, please give Rocky your seat." Tony looked stunned, then smirked at me. "Yeah, you should sit with your girlfriend." I could see he was biting down so hard he was nearly grinding his teeth. His hostility toward me had been obvious all night. I wanted to leave, but Hailey pulled me into the seat between them. If they both had feelings for each other, why not just be together? It would save me the trouble of finding an excuse to break up. What did making me sit between them even mean? It felt like I was just part of their little game. It was sickening, my stomach twisting in knots. The pain reminded me I'd forgotten to eat while working late tonight, and now my stomach issues were acting up. I was about to tell Hailey I wanted to leave when she suddenly pushed a glass of alcohol with ice toward me. "I lost the game. You drink for me." I frowned. She knew very well my stomach was in bad shape and that I couldn't handle alcohol. For the first 3 years, I drank so much on her behalf that it damaged my stomach. In the last 2 years, as the company prospered, no one dared push me to drink if I said I was allergic. Hailey was doing this on purpose. I looked at her and asked, "Why?" I truly didn't understand why Hailey was treating me this way. Even if she didn't love me, why hurt me? What did I do wrong? For 5 years, I stayed by her side, pulled all-nighters for the company, drank, and wore myself out. I saved H Corp, grew the business step by step, didn't claim the credit, didn't even ask for the money I deserved. Anyone else would have taken a huge stake in the company by now. I understood now. My mistake was wanting nothing but her love. What's wrong? Feeling wronged over one drink? She asked coldly. Is staying with me such a hardship? Unspoken tension hung in the air. I said nothing, just picked up the glass and drank. Then Hailey lost the second round, and then the third. I drank the second glass, then the third. The pain in my stomach grew, sweat soaking my back, but I endured, because this was the last time. Hailey seemed to be getting angrier. I didn't understand. Wasn't this what she wanted? Wasn't she pleased to see me suffering? So what was she angry about? Tony, sitting beside me, suddenly spoke up. "Hailey, Rocky doesn't seem to be holding his liquor well. His face looks pale. How about I drink for you?" I was glad he offered, but Hailey replied, "No, you're still on medication for a cold. Drinking isn't good for you." Tony gave me an apologetic smile. "Sorry, Hailey's worried about my health, so I can't help you." Me? This had to be that green tea guy everyone talks about online. A grown man. Was he really this pathetic? I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a full bottle of liquor and looked at Hailey. "I know you're mad at me. Let's do this. No need to make me drink one glass at a time. Isn't my life what you really want? I'll give it back to your family." Then, I raised the bottle and drank. The fiery liquor burned painfully down my already aching stomach. Cough, cough. The alcohol choked me, and I started coughing violently. Just as I caught my breath and prepared to drink again, everything went black and I collapsed. Vaguely, I heard voices exclaiming around me. "Rocky's coughing up blood. Call an ambulance." I felt someone clutching my hand tightly. It seemed like it started raining, drops falling on my face. "Rocky, wake up. Don't sleep. The ambulance is on its way. Please, please." But I was exhausted. So tired. I just wanted to rest. "Rocky, wake up. I was wrong." Was that Hailey's voice? Impossible. We'd been together 5 years. Hailey had never once apologized. It must be an illusion as I lost consciousness. In the early morning, as I woke up to the smell of antiseptic, I found Hailey resting her head on my bedside. Her hand was still holding mine tightly. If it had been before, I might have been touched, but now I felt nothing. At that moment, I realized I no longer loved her. I had lost that spark. Gently, I pulled my hand away, and she suddenly woke up. It looked like she hadn't slept much all night. Her eyes were red and swollen. "I'm fine now. You should go rest." "It's okay. I'll stay with you." I even ordered abalone porridge, just so you'd have something to eat when you woke up. She opened the meal box on the table as she spoke. Scooping up a spoonful, she blew on it before bringing it to my lips. I held back my nausea. Just leave it there. I'm not hungry. Hailey looked stunned, then self-deprecatingly asked, "Are you still mad at me?" "No, I just really dislike seafood. I'm not the one who enjoys it." "Rocky, I had no idea your stomach issues were this serious. If I had known, I wouldn't have made you drink last night. I went overboard. That was my fault. You've been giving me the cold shoulder for so long. Hasn't my punishment been enough? Can we make up now? I promise that what happened at the engagement party won't happen again." She playfully poked my cheek, her tone almost teasing, her gaze warm as she looked at me. "I'll stay with you until you're fully recovered. If you need anything, just let me know. Rocky, please don't be mad, okay?" I froze. I never expected Hailey to apologize, to try to soothe me. This was a first, but somehow, I didn't feel even the slightest happiness. She looked at me, waiting for an answer, but I had no words. It was all too late. Just as I was lost for words, Hailey's phone rang. She glanced at it, hesitated a moment, but answered it anyway. She stood up instantly and started walking away. "Tony, don't worry. I'll be right there." After hanging up, she seemed to remember me. She turned back, giving me an apologetic look. Sure enough, after the first apology, the second one came easily. "Rocky, I'm sorry, but something serious happened with Tony. I have to go." I looked at Hailey, deliberately asking her, "Between the two of us, who would you choose?" "Rocky." For a second, I almost thought she was going to choose me, but Hailey frowned, continuing, "Stop making trouble, okay? Tony and I are just friends. I promise. I'll be back soon." And then she left. I didn't try to stop her, because I had already let go. I was actually relieved by her choice, because in my heart, I'd already made mine. Hailey, this 10-year crush, these 5 years of being together, they ended completely in that moment. As you wished, I'll give you back your freedom from now on. And I, Rocky, no longer owe anything to your family. Maybe from the start, she didn't truly care about me. She only wanted to keep me around because I was useful. More accurately, I was useful to the company. Now, I wasn't just unhelpful. I was a potential threat, overshadowing her, becoming an obstacle. Hailey's father forced her to marry me, to give me a 10% stake in the company. Even though I'd said I'd sign a prenuptial agreement and wouldn't take H Corporation shares, she was still always on guard. Once at a banquet, someone jokingly offered me a job, extending an olive branch. She flipped out, publicly embarrassing them. Back then, I thought she truly cared about me, but it wasn't that. She feared I'd leave, so she cut off all my options. Then she built a cage of love to trap me. She wouldn't let me go, yet she didn't treat me well either. To her, I was just a tool for her to gain power within the company. I looked at the rain pouring outside the window and thought of the love song Hailey and Tony sang together. "Even if the rain turns the whole city upside down, I'll still hold you close, unable to bear just seeing your silhouette approach." I was born tone deaf. I can't even sing simple nursery rhymes without going off key, so I could never duet with Hailey. I can't say romantic words, don't know what's considered romantic, can't paint a starry sky, and can't give Hailey the love she wants. I took out my phone and slowly typed a resignation letter in my notes. On WeChat, a message came from a stranger. "Rocky, are you okay?" The sender's name was Hyacinth, with a profile picture of a green hyacinth oil painting. It reminded me of the tattoo on my body. Thinking it might be Hailey's secret account, I clicked into the person's moments. Turned out it was that green tea man, Tony. His latest post was from 2 hours ago. "Getting to eat porridge made by Hailey herself makes life feel worth it again. I just found out Hailey knew how to cook. In our 5 years together, she'd never cooked for me. At first, we were both busy, so we always ordered takeout or had a maid cook. Over the past 2 years, I had more time and even started learning to cook for her. Turns out, sincerity truly doesn't always beget sincerity." I replied to Tony, "Don't worry, I'm still alive, waiting to attend your 7-day memorial." He didn't reply again. Just as I was about to delete this repulsive guy I'd somehow added, Hailey called. The moment I picked up, I heard her shouting, "Rocky, what's wrong with you? He was being nice, checking on you. Why did you have to curse him? If you can't speak decently, then shut your mouth." I didn't want to listen anymore, so I said bluntly, "Hailey, let's break up." She hung up immediately and blocked me. Honestly, I wish them both well. May they stay together forever and spare others any trouble. After I sent my resignation email, I scheduled a moving company for the next day. She still didn't respond. I didn't try to reach out to her. Worst case, I'd go to the office and discuss it in person. The next morning, I checked out of the hospital and returned to the villa. As I was packing, I heard the villa door open. Hailey's sobs echoed through the hallway. "Rocky, Rocky." I stepped out of my room. She stumbled toward me, almost collapsing. My dad is in critical condition. He was saved last night, but he's still in the ICU, unconscious. I've been trying to reach you all day. I called and couldn't get through. I went to the hospital and they said you were discharged. Why didn't you answer? Do you know how scared I was? I paused for a moment. I took my phone from my pocket and saw several missed calls. I must have left my phone on silent. Don't cry. I'll go with you to see your father. Hailey held onto my waist tightly. I could feel her trembling. Rockey, I'm so scared of losing my dad. He'll be fine. He's a good person. Good people are blessed. I stopped her from driving. I've seen her drive when she's upset. It's dangerous. We arrived at the hospital. In the waiting room, I suggested she rest a bit while I kept watch. She nodded and leaned her head on my shoulder. Looking down, I noticed her dark circles, but I didn't have the heart to push her away. It didn't matter. My feelings were already gone, my heart long dead. Now, I was only worried about Hailey's father's condition. He donated for my heart surgery, helped me with school. Calling him a second father to me wasn't an exaggeration. In the past 2 years, my heart had grown weary of Hailey, but I'd still hesitated to leave her. Beyond a trace of lingering affection, there was another reason. Hailey's father's health was always fragile, and I didn't want to add to his stress. Hailey suddenly asked me, "Are you still mad at me?" No. Whatever she does, whoever she's with, whomever she makes porridge for, it has nothing to do with me anymore. Hailey seemed to sense my intent to break up. She said, "Whatever it is, can we talk about it after my dad recovers? Please? I can't handle any more right now." I replied slowly, "All right." I couldn't understand why she wouldn't let Tony stay with her instead, but I didn't ask. I didn't want to seem like I cared. 3 days later, Hailey's father pulled through the critical phase and regained consciousness. He requested to see me alone. Holding my hand, he said, "Rockey, I know these years have been hard on you." I shook my head. Not hard. It's unworthy of a gentleman to demand gratitude in return. But back then, I didn't stop Hailey because my health was truly failing. And her abilities, I'm fully aware of them. She can't handle those foxes in the company, and I had no choice. I understand. He patted my hand. I didn't look for you after the engagement party incident because I felt ashamed. I know very well how she's treated you these past years. I tried talking to her, but she wouldn't listen. Hailey has been stubborn since she was a child, and with her mother gone early on, I ended up spoiling her too much. I know being with her has been hard on you. I simply said, not hard. I'd grown used to swallowing all my bitterness. After all, no one forced me back then. I chose this path. It's only right to pay the price for my own choices. Hailey's father sighed. At the beginning, when you two first came to visit me, there was a light in your eyes when you looked at her. But now, he looked at me as if testing, then sighed again. Having walked to the edge of death's door, I've let go of my attachments. I don't want you two to become resentful partners, but I have only one request. Don't hold it against me, all right? Forgive this old man's selfishness. They say men don't cry easily, but that's only until they reach true heartbreak. I couldn't hold back anymore. It felt like a heavy stone that had been pressing on my heart was finally lifted. I could finally let go, take a breath. From now on, I could truly be myself. No more bending to anyone's expectations. No more pleasing anyone. No more sacrificing myself out of some sense of obligation. I nodded firmly at Hailey's father. "Thank you, truly, thank you." He smiled kindly, looking at me with a gentle gaze. "Rockey, you're a good kid. You'll be happy one day. And remember, I decided to sponsor you because you were worthy. You deserve it. Don't feel indebted to our family. Even if there was any debt, you paid it off long ago in these 5 years. Remember, even when you face Hailey, stand tall. You two were always equals." In that moment, a warm feeling surged in my heart. When someone acknowledges your suffering and offers comfort, you realize what positive emotion should really feel like. I placed the good luck charm I had painstakingly retrieved from the temple under his pillow. "Uncle, wishing you a full recovery. Goodbye." Returning to the villa, I continued packing my things. When the rescheduled moving company arrived, Hailey just happened to drive back. She stormed over, blocking me. "Rockey, what is the meaning of this?" Suddenly, I realized something. Although I'd let go of her in my heart and decided to break up, she hadn't heard me finish that sentence. So, I said clearly, "Hailey, let's break up." Hailey looked at me in shock, her face full of anger. "Rockey, say that again. You heard me. How dare you? What gives you the right to break up with me? Without my family, you'd be dead by now." If it weren't for, I interrupted her. "The person who helped me was your father, not you. If he asked me to repay him, I'd gladly do it. But if paying him back means sacrificing my marriage and lifelong happiness, sorry, I won't." Hailey's gaze turned cold and dark. "Is it because of Tony? If I told you I don't like him anymore, that we're just friends, what kind of friend has has no sense of boundaries. If it bothers you, I can keep my distance from him in the future. Hailey, are you trying to keep me now? Sure enough, as soon as I said that, she snapped. Rockey, don't think you're so important. If you walk out today, don't ever think of coming back. I remained unfazed. She added, perfect. Since Tony's been staying at a hotel since returning, if you leave, I'll let him move in. Did she really think that would work on me? Suit yourself. Oh, by the way, check your email and approve my resignation. Hailey stood frozen. I walked away. Love is mutual. One-sided love will never last. Once I got to the office, I began handing over my tasks. For the entire week, Hailey was in a foul mood. During executive meetings, everyone barely dared to breathe. Several employees were even fired for minor mistakes. On my last day, as I packed my things to leave, she called me into her office. Rockey, you win. Tell me, what will it take for you not to break up, not to quit, and stay with me? I wondered if Hailey was losing it. If there's nothing else, I'll be going. The resignation process is done. Hailey abruptly stood up from her chair. Rockey. Just then, the office door opened. Tony entered, clearly dressed up, in a fitted suit, silver hair, and rimless glasses. He looked strikingly stylish. Even I, with zero fashion sense, had to admit it. He held a lunchbox, the kind the family's cook often used. It looked like he really had moved in. I turned, ready to give them space. But Hailey addressed Tony. Tony, Rockey and I have things to discuss. Go back first. Tony's disappointment was obvious, so I said, we've said everything that needs to be said. There's nothing left. I'll be on my way. But Tony blocked my path, his gaze full of pleading. Rockey, don't misunderstand. Hailey and I really aren't anything more than friends. She's only helping me out of pity. I don't want you two to argue because of me. I'd feel terrible. Besides, I'll be returning abroad soon. I just hope I can see you two reconcile before I go. Right? You're just friends who can kiss each other. My bad. I'm too traditional and squeamish to welcome you into our family, so I'm choosing to bow out. You, how can you say that? Misunderstand me if you want, but don't say such harsh things about Hailey. You'll hurt her feelings. Feelings? She'd need to have a heart for that. Covering my mouth, I replied, stop talking. Hearing this from a man makes me sick. I feel like throwing up. Tony looked to Hailey with a hurt expression, but to his surprise, Tony, get out. After Tony reluctantly left, Hailey spoke slowly. There's really nothing between him and me. Tony has severe depression. 2 days before our engagement, he attempted suicide and called me to say goodbye. That's why I went to L.A. without notifying anyone. He asked me to keep it a secret, so I never told you. He came back to clear his head, and since I'm his closest friend here, I wanted to be there for him, just to make sure nothing happened to him. Hailey, you don't have to explain. We're nothing to each other now. Rockey, I've explained. What more do you need to get over it? She truly seemed unable to understand why I insisted on breaking up, so I decided to spell it out more clearly. Hailey, I don't love you anymore. The office fell silent. What did you say? I don't love you anymore. Since when? She looked at me, clearly unwilling to let it go. I don't remember. Maybe it was when you threw a fit and almost got me killed with alcohol. Maybe it was when you kissed Tony in front of me. Maybe it was when you ruined our engagement, or maybe it was earlier. Over the past 2 years, every time you vented your temper at me, every act of coldness, they all chipped away at my love. For 2 years, I never slept soundly, afraid of losing her, not knowing what I'd done wrong. It was only during those sleepless nights that I overheard her late-night calls. I loved her so humbly because I feared losing her. Hailey never knew. On the day she went to see Tony, I had the hyacinth tattoo removed from my body. It still hurt, more than when it was first done, but she never noticed. News of my resignation spread quickly through the industry, and several companies extended offers. I declined them all. I'd had my eye on a company in Hong Kong. I sent in my resume and waited for a response. The general manager soon reached out personally. After confirming my start date, I celebrated with friends a few times. One night, as my group and I left a restaurant, Hailey stood at the door. Snow had started falling at some point. Her face was red from the cold. Her nose, too. Peter nudged my arm. If you ever go soft and take her back, we're done. Don't worry, I won't. As we laughed and walked away, Hailey called out to me. Rockey, can we talk one more time? Her voice, touched by the cold wind, sounded almost pitiful. I took an umbrella from my car, opened it, and handed it to her. Not necessary. Rockey, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I really was. Without you, I can't do anything right. You're all I can think about. I know. My temper's been terrible these past 2 years, and the Tony situation really hurt you too. I promise I won't be willful again, won't make you sad, and I'll keep my distance from other men. Please? Rockey, can you give me another chance? She shed transparent tears. I watched indifferently, like an outsider, before I could speak. Peter came over, putting an arm around my shoulders and sneering at Hailey. Are you kidding? When he needed you most, you ran off. Now that you're out of options, you come crawling back. How pathetic. Last year, when he had a heat stroke from overwork, did you even check on him? I could go on, but I won't. I'm telling you now. You try to win Rockey back, and I'll be the first to oppose it. You're like a cold you can't shake. He finally got rid of you. I'm not letting you latch onto him again. If you come after him again, I'm calling the cops. I grabbed Peter's arm to calm him down and said to Hailey, my friend's stance is my stance. She clutched the umbrella, looking at me in despair. Did you feel this hurt when my friends bullied you, too? It's all in the past. Peter pulled me away. Too late affection is worthless. Why bother with her? People who only appreciate what they've lost deserve no sympathy. On the day I flew to Hong Kong, I posted an update on social media. Hailey's comment appeared below it. Rockey, I have something important to tell you. Wait for me. I'm on my way. I blocked her on every platform. This time, I wouldn't wait for anyone. At 28 years old, Rockey would live a life truly his own. Later, I heard that on the day I left, Hailey, dressed in a wedding gown and driving a supercar, rushed to the airport to stop me. She was going to propose, but because she was driving too fast, she had an accident. Fortunately, she didn't hit anyone, and she was unharmed. Meanwhile, the truth behind Tony's so-called depression spread from abroad to here. He plagiarized others' artwork and was blacklisted in his circle, and he had a chaotic private life abroad, even getting involved with wealthy women. Maybe he once did have a dream of being an artist, but eventually he couldn't resist temptation, falling into a life of indulgence. Depression? There wasn't any, just pure opportunism. He came to her out of desperation, knowing Hailey once had a crush on him. Now, she's the president of H Group, a golden opportunity. So he pretended to attempt suicide and called her. After returning, he manipulated our relationship to try to hold on to her. As for whether Hailey was truly conflicted in her feelings for him, only she knows. My answer doesn't matter. With or without Tony, we were bound to split. However, I did ask friends abroad to investigate Tony's past. Consider it my last way of repaying Hailey's family. For someone as proud as Hailey, deception is intolerable. Tony was later exposed for a gambling addiction and massive debts, living a life of constant evasion. No doubt, Hailey had a hand in this, but Hailey didn't have it easy either. Due to repeated poor decisions, her company's reputation deteriorated, and its prospects of going public became remote. 3 years later, I was promoted to vice president at my company in Hong Kong. When I returned to the capital for a business trip, one of the top tycoons threw a party to welcome me. This was because a year earlier, I facilitated a partnership between his family and Hong Kong's biggest real estate company. While socializing, someone suddenly approached me. Mr. Rockey, may I speak with you? I turned around and recognized him as one of Hailey's former hangers-on. Before I could respond, the tycoon hosting the event interrupted. Today, I'm celebrating for my friend. If you're looking for trouble, go elsewhere. As he meekly left, I overheard him making a call in the restroom. Damn, if I'd known Rockey would become this influential, why did I waste my time with Hailey? I should have just stuck with him. Now, it's way too late. Back then, we barely acknowledged him. Now he's out of our league. No wonder Hailey didn't come after getting the invite, probably too embarrassed. But she can't avoid it forever. Everyone in the industry knows she's nothing but a fool. Without Rockey, H Group would have never grown that big, and then she got rid of him. Look at them now. Her face has been shattered along with the company. If she hadn't slandered him behind his back, saying he's not capable, but at least obedient, we wouldn't have dismissed him as a freeloader. When he came out, I just finished washing my hands. Through the mirror, I looked at him and said quietly, still bad-mouthing others, I see. I'm so sorry, Mr. Rockey. I took the paper he handed me, carefully wiped my hands, and didn't spare him another glance. As for his family's business, they've long been blacklisted. I can hold a grudge. When the banquet ended, I returned to my hotel, and there, waiting outside, stood someone I hadn't seen in a long time. Hailey turned around, and I noticed a scar on her forehead. I thought she was here to ask me to save H Group. Unexpectedly, she said, Rockey, I'm leaving, going abroad with my father to a wellness center. The company's in a bad state, but a crippled camel is still bigger than a horse, so I've left it in capable hands. I didn't know what to say and simply nodded. She looked calm, but there was an unmistakable sadness in her eyes. You must have wondered why I chose to be with you, only to treat you so poorly? I didn't answer. After a long pause, she said, because of jealousy. Rockey, I've been jealous of you since we were kids. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how many tutors I hired, I was never as good as you. My dad always praised you at home, and I competed with you in secret from a young age. One day, I wanted to see who you really were, so I went with my dad to the orphanage. Do you know, you shouldn't have looked at me with that open admiration. It was the handle I needed to control you. No matter how great you were, you didn't dare touch the hem of my skirt. Your cautious demeanor pleased the insecure me immensely. So, after you graduated, I brought you to my side. I was jealous of your excellence, yet I gained so much from having you around. Once the company stabilized, I started feeling that you were less useful, and your very presence reminded me of my dependency, of my failure to succeed on my own. I couldn't stop myself from taking it out on you, deliberately humiliating you for a sense of balance. Just before our engagement, I overheard you talking to a friend. You were unsure if getting engaged was the right choice. That call was because I'd sensed our relationship had serious issues. I thought you regretted it. I didn't want to be the loser in love too. Rather than wait for you to leave, I decided to leave first. So I used Tony's call as an excuse to escape to L.A. I did see him as just a friend. I was tricked by his depression and pitied him. When you canceled the engagement, I got angry. I got my answer. You didn't love me as much as I thought. I took that as confirmation and couldn't stop myself from taking it out on you. Purposely getting close to Tony, purposely ignoring you. Usually, you'd appease me, but that time, you didn't. You were calm, and it infuriated me. Your indifference drove me to hurt you. I deliberately made them belittle you, flirted with Tony, pushed you to drink, but you didn't give in. When you had a stomach bleed, I was genuinely afraid of losing you. I didn't want to keep testing how much you still loved me, but your eyes told me clearly that you didn't love me anymore. I was afraid to hear you say break up, so I sought out Tony again, knowing he'd post about it online, but you didn't care. I didn't want to bow down repeatedly, but when my dad got seriously ill, you were the only one I had left. When you resigned, I was furious, wondering if you did it to get back at me. Honestly, I was terrified you'd leave, so I begged you. But when I heard you say you didn't like me anymore, it felt like my whole world collapsed and I couldn't bring myself to plead anymore. Every day since you left, I've been lost. In school, I treated you as a rival and compared our grades. At work, I depended on you but also resented you. I had so many negative feelings about you that I forgot that I loved you. By the time I realized, I was too far behind to catch up. She touched the scar on her forehead. I left it there on purpose to remind myself of my foolishness and of what I lost. Rockey, I've told you all this, not to win you back, nor to atone, just to let you know, for 5 years, you did nothing wrong. You were good. The problem was me. Since the breakup, sleepless nights are my new normal. Don't pity me. It's my deserved consequence. I hope you can sleep well. No more sleeping pills. I wanted to tell you, I did love you. Goodbye, Rockey. She turned and walked into the darkness. I stood there, watching her fading figure for a long time. There were many things I wanted to say, but also nothing left to say. In the end, all I murmured was, goodbye. To love her, this small matter, had ended a long time ago. The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.